Welcome to Real Rockford Files, for tales of the paranormal, supernatural, and the flat-out unbelievable. Today I'm going to be sharing ghost stories from South Dakota. Let's get into it. Story 1. I've had attacks all my life, as long as I could remember. It sort of became part of my life, I guess. These nightly attacks affected my everyday life. Sometimes I was too scared to go to sleep. I never told anyone. When an attack happened, I awoke suddenly, knowing the attack was going to occur, with something putting pressure on my whole body. It always made my head turn to the left. I would scream out my sister's name and she would never wake, because it was just air coming out. I would try to fight it, but couldn't. A couple years ago, it got physical at my friend's. I could see a circle floating, and it was bright red and then turned black, and it flew at me and hit my chest. The attacks take so much energy. I fall asleep right after. When I awoke a few minutes later, I ran to the mirror, and a big red circle appeared where it had hit. These past years I fight it off. The attacks happen when it wants to. My family says it's stress and to forget about it. They always say that. I believe it may be something more. I feel someone with me all the time. I'm scared of seeing too much. I have so much life ahead of me, and having to think about this, it's really affected my life. I break down when it happens because it really frightens me. There was even a 1 or 2 foot spirit that visited me once. It walked slowly towards me as I was napping. I could hear the feet sliding across the carpet. The covers were blocking my view to see what it was, but I kept breaking free from the pressure and its grip. In my head, I told it that I wasn't scared and that I would fight it. It walked out. And to this day, I still don't know what to think of that attack. Feels like they get worse now as I grow. I need answers. Can anyone help me? Story 2. Let me start by saying me and my best friend are closer than sisters, and we go to all of each other's family events because that's just how close we are. Her family is like mine, and my family is like hers. And a couple of years ago, my grandma passed away due to cancer, and every year on her birthday, we bring her flowers to her grave. Last year, it was just very last minute. Sorry, Grandma. It was about 11:30 to midnight by the time I remembered that we forgot to bring flowers out to the cemetery, and I stood up and said we have to bring flowers to Grandma's grave. Thank God Walmart is open 24/7, and they don't ever close the gates to the cemetery she's buried in, because it's in the middle of nowhere pretty much. We went and bought flowers and headed out there. Back then I had this big old 91 Buick LeSabre. It was just a big old boat of a car, a total piece of crap, and I mean that. Those of you who know what they look like know that's a pretty solid car, heavy doors, etc. Right when we got to the gate of the cemetery, my friend started flipping out, screaming about a lady in a black robe with a pale face and dark sunken eyes standing by the gate. I looked back and didn't see anything, so I thought she might have just seen like a shadow of the car or something. We pulled up to my grandma's headstone. It's on the very end closest to the driveway, and my friend was begging me to just bring the flowers out the next day when it was light out. And I said, well, we're already here. My car is a gas guzzler. I said, whatever you saw is gone now, and I don't think it wants to hurt us, so I'll be quick about it. Normally the cemetery has a very friendly vibe, but not that night. That night I had a very uneasy feeling. I asked if she wanted to come and put the flowers on Grandma's grave with me, and she said, just tell Grandma happy birthday from me. That's how I knew she was scared. Normally she would have came with me no matter what, since this was like her grandma too. So I finally got out of the car, flowers in hand. I left my car door open because I was a little freaked myself. I walked to my grandma's grave, set down the flowers, and said, happy birthday, Grandma, from both of us. Just as I stood and turned around, out of the corner of my eye, I saw my car door slam shut, hard. My friend started screaming. No, the car was not tilted, it was not on a hill, and no, there was no wind that night. It was a perfect windless summer night. I was in total shock that those big old heavy doors couldn't have shut by themselves. No way. It took a very hard shove to shut it, so there's no way it could have just slammed shut like that. I froze, not knowing what to do. I couldn't move. Finally, I got the courage to make a mad dash for the car. I grabbed the door handle, which was freezing, which didn't make sense because it was 80 degrees that night. I flung the car door open, jumped in the car, and threw it into drive. It was very cold in the car, and my AC doesn't even work. My poor friend was pale as a ghost herself, and she just kept screaming, "Go, go, go." She says she was just sitting there watching me, and the door just slammed shut and the steering wheel shook a little, and she started screaming. Just as we were pulling out of the cemetery, we saw a very dark shadow by the end gate, so we hauled Bud out of there and went straight home. When we got home, we told my mom what happened. She said, well, maybe it was Grandma's way of telling you to get home, because I didn't have a driver's license at the time. Before I move on to the next story, I would like to point out that a majority of my viewers aren't subscribed. If you can just take a moment and hit that subscribe button, maybe click like or leave a comment, it'll go a long way in helping me fight the algorithm. You can always take it back later, and it's totally free. Now, back to the stories. Story 3. Me and my family once lived in a small town called Red Shirt. We had a new house that was built when I was little. We would do a lot of things in the house when it was done. My cousins would come over to play. We would play in the basement, playing hide and seek, playing in the dark. Before my sister Cecilia had friends, my mother said that she would be in the basement talking to herself and laughing. My mom was thinking that I was down there, but when it was lunchtime, she would come up alone. This is when we were just little girls, and I came in from outside along with my brother Tim. My sister said that she was playing with an angel in the basement, but the more she was playing with us outside, the more the angel became evil, mad because my sister was making friends with others. And when my sister decided to go down and see the angel, the thing she was looking at was nothing like the angel. It had red eyes and a scary voice, and it was dark and in the dark. She tried to explain to him that she was outside with us, but the more she tried to talk to him, the more he was mad. He tried to attack her, but she ran up the stairs. Nowadays, when we try to sleep, you can hear someone coming up the stairs and going down them too. And every time we go down to wash clothes, we have a weird feeling. Once my mother tried to wash clothes, she saw something in the corner of the basement and she ran up the stairs. We decided to move. After that, my sister didn't talk to herself anymore. Now every time we go and see the house, we have a feeling that we're not welcome. My cousin and her mother moved in, so we asked them if they hear anything at night, and they say no. But once in a while, we'll hear footsteps, but that's it. Now we don't even go over there anymore. Story 4. Since I was a small child, all kinds of strange things have happened to me in my life. As a child, I was playing in my room in the evening. When I looked at my bedroom window, I screamed for my mom. What I saw there was a face like the ones you see today of aliens. It had huge eyes. I remember those eyes giving me nightmares for many years. When Mom came to my room, she looked out the window and saw nothing. At that time, we lived in Kadoka, South Dakota, close to the Badlands. At around age 15 to 16, my friend and I were babysitting on New Year's Eve. We lived in Sioux Falls. We knew it would be boring after the kids went to bed, so we took a Ouija board along. We asked it all kinds of questions and it would spell out answers. Kinda creepy, but you know how kids like that stuff. Anyway, the main thing I remember from that night is that I asked it how many kids I would have. It spelled out one dead one. I freaked, but asked more questions. I asked what it would be. It spelled out girl. I also asked when she would be born, and it spelled out November 9th, 1969. Well, I had two kids. Remember Ouija board said one dead one? Well, in 1969, I gave birth to a baby girl who passed away 4 hours after birth. She was born November 9th, 1969. So it was actually right, because it said one dead one. I remember that night after she passed away, I was on the third or fourth floor at McKinnon Hospital and had the eeriest feeling that someone was watching me. This was the spookiest experience in my life. I will never forget it, nor will I forget the feeling the night after my baby Kathy passed away. When I was 39 years old and married, we bought a house built in the early 1900s in Willow Lake. South Dakota. At first, everything was fine. Then strange, unexplainable things started happening. Cold breezes would blow across your face. My husband said he always felt something touching his feet in bed, and one night he thought it was our little granddaughter, but he got up and she would be sound asleep. He also said that when he got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom that the hallway was really cold. He always had the heat really high, and I hated that, but at night the hallway was cold. Well, he kept telling me how he felt something on his feet at night. I told him he was crazy because I was right next to him and I felt nothing. We changed sides in bed one night, and I about freaked because I felt like fingers were moving on my feet. That freaked me out. One night I was in that same bedroom because I didn't want to watch what he was watching on TV. All of a sudden my dog started acting really weird, and at the same time I all of a sudden felt like a really cold hand on my hip. I ran to the living room into my husband's lap. He said I was white as a ghost and wanted to know what was wrong. That same bedroom. One night my husband was away trucking, and all of a sudden I awoke to my two dogs growling. When I opened my eyes, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me because right in front of me, about the height of a person, I saw reddish orange glowing eyes, kind of like deer eyes glow at night, but these were reddish orange. I stared and closed my eyes, reopened my eyes, and it was still there. I wasn't scared because I thought it was my eyes. I would turn my head and see it out of my side vision. Finally, I thought, hell with this, and turned the light on. Nothing there, and the dogs quit growling. One thing I want to say is that this house has old windows, which were really drafty, so I had totally covered the windows with insulation. Nothing could have shined in the windows. Same house, my two small grandchildren were staying with me. Colin was playing with cars in the middle of the room, and Brooke was in the kitchen. I was in my recliner about 4 feet from Colin. All of a sudden, Colin turns his head. "Who did that?" I said, "Did what, Colin?" He said, "Somebody was tapping on my shoulder." I told him it was probably a bug flying around the house. Later, he was in the front porch playing, and he came running into the living room and told me something was tapping his face. Creepy. That night, I put both kids upstairs in the same bed to sleep. They came running down the stairs white as a ghost. "Grandmother's a ghost right by the fan on the dresser." They had never heard any of what went on in the house. I kept it quiet because they were small kids, and I didn't want them to be scared. I didn't know what to say. Anyway, I put Colin downstairs with Grandpa and took Brooke upstairs with me. That little girl would not let me turn the light off. She was scared to death. Now, usually little kids feel safe with an adult, but she would not lay down with the light on and me there with her. We went downstairs. I had my computer room upstairs. One of my dogs always went upstairs with me. Every night around 10:30, Buddy would go into the hallway and start growling. There was nothing shining in the window, so I didn't know what he was growling at. The next night I closed the computer room door, and sure enough, 10:30, he started growling at the door. This kind of freaked me out. I wondered what the hell was going on in this house. I have a son, and he and his girlfriend, the grandchildren's parents, would not sleep upstairs. My son told me that his pillow was pulled from under his head. Had two adult stepchildren who wouldn't sleep up there either. My sister and I were upstairs doing crafts one day. We had music playing. All of a sudden the music stopped and the TV went on. We ran downstairs screaming. Her husband told us it was nothing, and why would that happen? I stayed with my mother for 4 years taking care of her at her home. She had ovarian cancer. I kept my mom at home until the day she died. After she passed away, I would be in the basement bedroom. Maybe this was my imagination. I don't know. We had played Amazing Grace and other music for her when she was dying. After she passed away, I would hear music and sometimes footsteps upstairs. Made me have anxiety attacks really bad, so my brother came and moved me to his farm. I was up late one night at the farm, and I heard faint music, so I went downstairs since I thought Scott was awake. He had no music playing, but he told me that he and others had heard it before too. Well, this had gotten to be kind of a long, and not sure if I told the entire story, but most of it is written. I've told people about things, especially that house, and seen people that don't believe me. Wish I can get a lie detector or a hypnotize just to prove these things are true. Maybe hypnosis would even prove to myself that these unexplainable things were. People act like you're nuts. Story 5. My name is Madison. Here's my story. I was asleep and having the strangest dream. I was in a room. The door was locked with chains. The window was boarded shut and the light bulb was smashed. I sat up and looked around. There was 10 people sitting around me with their heads down and their eyes shut. The people were my mother, my boyfriend, my grandma, my cousins Sam and Justin, my best friends Ashley, Cassie, and Emily, my dad, and my grandpa. I tapped my mother and said, "Mom, you alright?" She looked up and her eyes were a dark color of blood. I got scared and stood up. Then my sisters walked up and grabbed my hands. Whitney bit right in the middle of my pointer finger and thumb, and so did Taylor. I screamed and they stopped. That's when I woke up. My hand hurt, so I turned the light on, and the bite marks are still there for a second, then they vanish. Ever since, strange things have been happening. A few days after, at school, I looked out the window for a few minutes. When I looked back at the board, I saw something run out of the room, but no one else saw it, even though a few were watching the door. A week after that, I was in my room, about to go to sleep, and the closet door was shut. When I closed my eyes, something whispered, "Madison." I opened my eyes and saw a black figure run out of the room and the closet door was open. But most creepy, I was outside and looked over and saw a black figure. I stood up and it disappeared. The next day, a girl that had punched me got hit by a car. She lived. I told my mom and she said she's been seeing it too. I have more stories, but I have to go now. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. Hope you enjoyed.